we are starting a new unit of work. So we have completed the inheritance and diagrams and mutations, genetic engineering. If there's anything you'd like to know about that still, please ask me on the Twitter account. I have started uploading the lessons of the previous 2 weeks that I have been teaching on Twitter. I know someone has asked about a Facebook account. I'm still working on that to make sure that I have a separate Facebook account where you guys can upload questions or view settings and things that I've uploaded. But everything is available on the Twitter account. I have downloaded the videos as a PDF and then tiny URL them so you can view them. I will also insert extra video links there so that you can go to separate video channels or separate sites where you can play around with interactive models like we will today, to just enhance your learning a little bit. There's no need for us to study like parrots. It's all about understanding and not just memorizing facts. So let's look at what we will be looking at today. Today, we will be looking at reactions to stimuli in the surroundings. Stimuli is anything that comes from outside that we need to react to, the central nervous system, and we will only be focusing on the brain. The parts of the brain we will be focusing on is the meninges for protection, the location and the function of the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the corpus callosum, medulla oblongata, and the spinal cord. And the hypothalamus should also be in there. All right, so if we are ready, we will start the lesson now. So what I would like you to do is, I would like you to look at this picture over here, and I'd like you to tell me in the chat, what is happening in the picture? Why is this happening? And which organs or systems contribute to the action that is happening? So first tell me what is happening in the picture. Why is this happening? And which organs or systems contribute to whatever action is happening? And I'm going to wait until I have a few answers. I see that there are quite a number of you already signed in. So I'm going to wait for you to tell me, give me some feedback, and then we will start the lesson. This is just an introduction. Oh, you can only see at the end of this lesson slide. Oh, yeah, all right, let's see. Thank you very much for that. All right, are you able to see the screen now?
Yes.
Are you able to, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. So what is happening in this picture? What is happening? Why is this happening? And which organ or systems contribute to whatever action is happening? Right, so a kid sees a snake, he's running away. And which organs or systems do you think contribute to him seeing the snake and running away? And list all of the organ systems that you are aware of, all of the systems that contribute. All right, we've got the nervous system. That is one of the systems, yes, and we'll be looking more at the nervous system, but there are much more that contribute. I'm waiting for at least 2 more people to answer. 2 more people. Or 2 more answers. So we've got on, there we go. Aha, the optical nerve sends impulses to the brain, and the brain sends impulses to the legs to run. Well done. So we've got the eyes, the brain, the muscles, and the nervous system. Well done. So as you can see, we work as a unit. Everything in our body works as a unit, and the center to that unit working well is our central nervous system. That is the filter that everything goes through. Now, in the chat, just indicate if you can't see the slides. I can see them changing. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see them. Well done. I see sense organs. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Goodness, tech is not my thing today. So in the exam, this is what the scope of work is for the central nervous system. You need to know about the brain and the spinal cord, and that they are protected by the meninges, and you need to know all three of them. Then there is the location and the function of the following parts. The brain is subdivided in the cerebrum, cerebellum, corpus callosum, medulla oblongata. You also are going to learn a little bit about the hypothalamus and the spinal cord. Now, I've got a very, very nifty website that we are going to use today. And I hope that if we transition between the two, that we don't pick up any trouble. So fingers crossed. Now, in order for us to survive, we need to respond to our environment. It is a survival mechanism for us. We need to be able to respond to our environment. To achieve this, humans have two coordinating systems, which allows us to adapt and change to the environment, and then we maintain our internal conditions. That is called homeostasis. For humans to be in homeostasis, it means that all our systems are functioning optimally and we are happy in our environment. Now, the two systems are the nervous system and the endocrine system. We are first going to focus on the nervous system, and then starting next week, we will look at the, towards the end of next week, we will learn a little bit more about the endocrine system. And the nervous system, we'll focus on the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and nerves. And for the endocrine system, we will learn a little bit more about hormones and the glands that secrete them. So here we have the nervous system. It's divided into the central nervous system. So we have a brain and a spinal cord. We have the peripheral nervous system, and we have ganglions and nerves. We are only going to learn about nerves. We will also learn about a synapse, and we'll learn more about a reflex arch. This is the major endocrine glands, and females and males have different glands, so we will learn a little bit more about all the hormones secreted in males as well as in females. All right, so what I would like you to do in the chat, please state any 3 facts of the nervous system. Any 3 things that you know about the nervous system, please state any 3 facts. Maybe you know something about the anatomy. Maybe you know a little bit more about physiology. Remember, anatomy is what it looks like. Physiology is the function or the purpose. So please mention any 3 facts you know about the nervous system. Now, while I wait for answers, I'll give you a little bit more information. This is not for exam purposes. This is just for yourself. All right, so your brain there's something called neuroplasticity, which means your brain is constantly changing. Those neural pathways that you have, you constantly make new ones and lose ones that you don't use. So your brain is constantly changing. That is why a habit takes a little bit of time to become a habit, or learning a new skill. So research has proven that if you learn to juggle, you actually increase brain matter. That is how intricate the skill of juggling is. So if you want to learn a new skill and improve your brain, learn to juggle. Your brain also can't feel. Your brain has no feeling. So even though it's the hub of all these sensory processes, the brain itself has no feeling. All right, so I see people have, wow, the neurons lined up is up to 965 kilometers long. Well done. All right, so 3 facts about the nervous system. You could have mentioned anything about nerves, that we have a brain. Our brain is in our cranium or our skull. But by the end of the lesson, I'm going to ask you again to mention 3 things, and we'll see if you can come up with 3 facts. Now, our nervous system is divided into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. NS is just short for nervous system. So the central nervous system is further subdivided into the brain and the spinal cord. This is what we will be focusing on today, the central nervous system. Tomorrow, we'll only learn about the peripheral nervous system. So I'm not going to go into detail, but the peripheral nervous system is also subdivided, and that is further subdivided. So tomorrow we'll discuss this graphic. Today we'll look at the central nervous system. Now, important words to know for the central nervous system is cranium. Cranium is the term for your skull, and your skull protects your brain. Then we have meninges, and those are protective membranes surrounding the brain and the spinal cord. Don't forget about the spinal cord. Then you have cerebrospinal fluid. What I like most about these words is I feel really clever when I pronounce them. They are very medical sounding words. So cerebrospinal fluid is the fluid around the brain and spinal cord to aid in protection. Don't worry, as we go on, we'll discuss these more. Gray matter is the part of the brain and spinal cord consisting of cell bodies and dendrites. White matter is part of the brain and spinal cord consisting of myelinated axons. Then we have the neurons, specialized nerve cells which transmit impulses, and dendrites. Dendrites are fibers that transmit impulses to a cell body in a neuron. All of these terms would be very good for you to know and use when answering questions. These are the vocabulary words that are used in test papers and in questions. Now, the human nervous system is responsible for controlling all the biological processes and movement in the body. It can receive information, it interprets information, and then it reacts to the information. We need a nervous system in humans to react to stimuli. Stimuli can be external, so outside the body, or internal, from inside the body, and it coordinates the various activities of the body. The central nervous system is incredibly important for the organizing of everything you do. If you can touch your nose with your left index finger and your left ear with your right index finger, and then you switch, it's incredibly difficult to do in the beginning because that's a new neural path the brain needs to learn. The more you do it, the more coordinated you become. That's just something simple. But your body is regulated, the temperature, how hungry you are, when you need to sleep, heart rate, breathing, all your organ systems are functioning, and the nervous system regulates that. So let's quickly summarize nervous system functions before we go to a very cool website. It controls and coordinates functions throughout the body. It responds to internal and external stimuli. So if you stub your toe or you feel a hot plate and you pull away, that's nerves that do that. And it provides fast communication between body systems and body parts. Do we have any questions about the function of the human nervous system up to now? Any questions? All right, so this is a visual of an actual MRI scan. This is an image of an actual human brain. This is a cross-section, and it was done in an MRI machine. It's a magnetic resonance imaging machine. People go in it and they get imaging of your entire body. This is one of just the brain. Now, it would have been lovely if I could have dissected a brain for you and showed you the different parts. However, we don't have that luxury right now, so we need to opt for the best alternative, and we need to go to an interactive brain. Now, I would like to know, can you see the brain spinning on the screen? Can you see the brain on the screen? Fantastic. So this is a wonderful website. If you are interested in neurology, remember neurology is the study of the human brain. Brainfacts.org is a fantastic website, and it is run by the Neurosurgeon Society. So we are going to use this brain as our model brain. Now, as you can see, the brain is made up of several parts. There we go. So you can go to the drop-down menu and you can click on a part. Now, this is the left cerebral hemisphere. As you can see, there are two hemispheres. Hemi means half, sphere is circle. Now, even though the brain isn't circular, we have two parts, a right cerebral hemisphere or a right part of the brain and a left part of the brain. If you go into the site and you click on each part of the brain, it gives you a description of the brain, and you can even zoom in a little bit more. So we are just going to look at the cerebral hemisphere, the cerebral side of the body, the cerebrum. Then we go back and we will look at the brainstem, the medulla oblongata. We have the cerebellum, and we are going to just mention the pons. So I'll switch between the two pages as we look at the different parts of the human brain. Now you can see that the cerebellum is made up of all these twisted little bits. Who can tell me why it is not smooth? Why do you think the cerebellum, all the cells and tissue have twisted up together? It would be like stretching out a piece of string, but now if you fold it up, you can fit quite a lot of tissue in a very small space. So well done. So it can fit into your skull and you have maximum exposure for tissue. Now your brain is protected in three ways. Your brain is protected in three main ways. The first one is inside a bony cranium. And you can tap your head. Your cranium or your skull is very, very strong. Very, very strong. Now, an interesting little fact is that when babies are born, their cranium is made up of different bony plates, and they only fuse after a few months. So that's why people always tell you to hold the baby's neck, cradle the head, because that cranium isn't as solid and strong as yours would be. So you have a bony cranium, and then you have three membranes called meninges. And if you have meningitis, it's these three membranes that have been infected. And then you also have fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. Now, if you think about a balloon and you blow up a balloon and you put a marble in that balloon and you shake it, do you think there will be a lot of noise? Do you think that, or if you take a small tiny bird's egg and you put it in this balloon, blow up the balloon and you start to shake it, do you think that egg will be protected inside the balloon if it's just air surrounding it and you shake it around? Nope. It's not going to be protected at all. But if you fill that balloon up with water and you tie it and you shake it, that will protect the egg inside the balloon. It's very similar to the amniotic fluid. It acts as a little bit of a shock absorber. It acts as protection. So the cerebrospinal fluid acts as a last layer of protection for your brain. So you have your bony cranium, you have your three membranes, and you have your cerebrospinal fluid. Now the three membranes, this is your skull, that's your cranium, is the dura mater, pia mater, and the arachnoid. So you've got these three layers, and then you also have your cerebrospinal fluid. So the cerebrospinal fluid acts as the last layer of protection. You first have your skull, your cranium, you have your three membranes, and last but not least, you have your cerebrospinal fluid. And remember, this not only protects the brain, it also protects the spine. The only difference is the spine is protected by the spinal cord, but they also have the three membranes, and they also have the cerebrospinal fluid, or it also has the cerebrospinal fluid. All right, the three main parts of the brain is the cerebellum, the smaller part of the brain, the cerebrum, and the brainstem, the medulla oblongata. So these are the three main parts of our brain. We also have the pons, we also have corpus callosum, which connects the two halves of the brain. But this is the main parts of the brain we will focus on, but we'll also learn a little bit more about the other parts. So the cerebrum controls voluntary actions. Anything that you choose to do, if you choose to pick up your pen and you pick up your pen, that's your cerebrum. Higher thought processes, so reasoning, thinking about things, that is your cerebrum. Your corpus callosum is right in the middle, and it connects the left hemisphere with the right hemisphere. So there's communication between the two hemispheres. There's always signals firing between your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere. And the corpus callosum connects the two parts. Then we have the cerebellum. The cerebellum is a little bit smaller than the cerebrum. It also coordinates movement, muscle tension, and balance. So if you can stand on one leg, then you have the cerebellum to blame for that skill. And last but not least, we're going to look at the medulla oblongata, or the brain stem. This transmits nerve impulses between the spinal cord and the brain. So it's a connection between the spine, the spinal cord, and your brain. And it includes things like breathing, heartbeat, all your involuntary actions. In an accident, if your medulla oblongata is damaged, usually it is not a great prognosis, and a person might be declared brain dead because these involuntary things like heartbeat and breathing has been severely affected. And then the last part, which scientists believe is the oldest part of your brain, is your hypothalamus. It's your hypothalamus, and that controls hunger, sleep, body temperature, emotions. This is the part of your brain that makes sure your body stays in homeostasis. And remember, homeostasis is the optimal environment for our bodies to be in. Right, let's look at the cerebrum. So we're going to quickly go to the brain diagram. This is our cerebrum. It's divided into two hemispheres, the right cerebral hemisphere and the left cerebral hemisphere. And right in between is our corpus callosum, joining them. The cerebrum is responsible for the following things. Interpreting touch. So if you touch something soft, something warm, something cold, velvet, silk, cotton, that all is in your cerebrum. Vision and hearing, speaking, reasoning, learning, memory, fine motor control. This is all to do with your cerebellum, or your cerebrum, your cerebrum. So your cerebrum is divided into different lobes. You have your frontal lobe, and this is just extra information. This is important to function, but you won't be asked to identify it on a brain diagram. You've got your frontal lobe, and in teenagers, or well, in humans, this is the part of the brain that develops last. So I've got a very interesting slide for you there. So this is the part of the brain in humans that only develops in your early 20s. So all of your prefrontal lobes have not yet fully developed. It doesn't affect your motor area or your control of voluntary movements or speech, but the last part of this prefrontal lobe to develop is decision making. So that is why sometimes younger people make decisions that they regret. It's just that part of the brain hasn't developed yet. You have your parietal lobe, your occipital lobe, your temporal lobe, and then you've got areas associated with it. This is all that you need to know, is that the cerebrum is responsible for motor movements, speech, sight, taste, smell, all your senses, reasoning, intelligence, memory, and judgment. And this is the part in humans that is last to develop. Out of all the parts in your brain, reasoning, intelligence, memory, and judgment is last to develop. Then we look at the cerebellum. Your cerebellum, and I think I'm just going to go to the drop-down memory, is much easier. So you see, if you play around with this, you can go to all the different lobes, and it teaches you a little bit more about each lobe. We want to go to the cerebellum. Gosh, if I can find, there we go. So the cerebellum, and this is Latin for little brain, because it looks like a little brain, is very small, but it contains up to 7 billion neurons. This is highly convoluted, exactly like the cerebrum, and this is just so that it optimizes the number of neurons it can fit into your skull. So the cerebellum is just under the cerebrum, and this, remember, cerebellum means little brain. So if you have to label it, it's the one that looks like a little brain. This is voluntary muscle movements, posture, and balance. Voluntary muscle movements, again, you choose the muscle that moves, posture, and balance. The cerebellum, like the cerebrum, is made up, oh, that's the wrong slide, is made up of two sides, the left and the right hemisphere, and you have gray matter and white matter. Now, this is a cross-section of the brain, so they've sliced the brain, and this is just a diagram, and you can see the white matter is on the inside, and the gray matter is on the outside. Damage to this part of the brain causes muscle coordination, so you won't be as coordinated as before. Then we have the medulla oblongata, or the brainstem. Now the brainstem, the medulla oblongata, lies between the pons, that's the pons over there, the spinal cord, and this is the spinal cord that goes down over here. So this is your brainstem. It contains the autonomic body functions. Those are the things you cannot control. You can't control the depth of your lungs breathing. You can hold your breath for a bit, but eventually you'll start breathing again. You can't make your heart beat faster, blood pressure yourself, or your reflexes, coughing, sneezing. If you've ever tried to hold a sneeze in, you know that it's incredibly difficult. All of this is monitored by your medulla oblongata. All of this is by your medulla oblongata. So we'll quickly go and see if we can find that. There we go. So this is your medulla oblongata, all the nerve fibers connecting the forebrain, the cerebellum, and the spinal cord needs to pass through your brainstem, your medulla oblongata. It is essential activities like heart rate, your breathing regulation, vision, hearing, motor control, muscles of the face and neck. This is one of the most important parts of your brain. So again, things like the vital reflexes, things that you need for life is breathing, blood pressure, your temperature of your body, your rate of your heartbeat, your glandular secretions, peristalsis, swallowing. All of these things are managed by your brainstem. Non-vital things that you don't need to survive, salivation, coughing, blinking, hiccuping, sneezing, they are all controlled by your brainstem or your medulla oblongata. And then the last thing you have is a hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus is the master control of the autonomic system. It's right in the middle of your brain, and it is known as the first part that developed in your brain, in human brains ages ago. It maintains homeostasis. It regulates hunger and your body weight, water and electrolytes through thirst. So if your water intake is low, your electrolyte is out of balance, you will become thirsty. Sleepiness and wakefulness, so it manages when you go to sleep, body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, sexual response, secretion of hormones from the pituitary gland. All of this is managed by your hypothalamus. And your hypothalamus, if we go here, is right in the middle of your brain. There we go. Now, this was that interesting page I told you about. This is just to show you how human brains develop throughout the years. So this is a 5-year-old, this is an adolescent, so 14, 15, 16, and this is a 20-year-old's brain. So you can see when it's more pink and red, it's very dense brain matter, so it hasn't gray matter, so it hasn't developed much. And as it becomes more purple and blue, or blue to purple, it is a higher functioning, it is more matured. So you can see in the age of 5, what areas of the brain is not as developed. And as you progress, your brain matures. But the last part of your brain, and you can see that little part here, your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain that's responsible for judgment decisions. That is the last to develop, only once you're around 20 years old. So yeah, I always like to look at this and think, well, isn't this fantastic how our brains develop through the years? So this is a 5-year-old child again. The more red is present, the more immature the brain is. It's not as developed yet. And as it becomes more blue purplish, then you know that the functions of the brain and the functions of the different parts is at optimal development. That prefrontal lobe is planning, emotional control, and problem solving. And that's it. All right, so we've got questions. We've got 10 minutes left, and we have some questions. So is there anything you would like to know about what we've learned? Anything that you would like to know more about the anatomy of the brain? All right, if not, please answer questions 1.4.1 all the way through 1.5. So all you need to do is just give me the letter. Give letter of the part of the brain responsible for memorizing a cell phone number. What part of your brain is responsible for memory? What part do you think? Let's just quickly go through it. B is the links to the previous lesson slides is in the Twitter page. I can also download all the slides, and I'll ask at the administration how I can share all the slides in a folder that is accessible for you guys. But I've downloaded all the slides, they're on the Twitter page. I will also find out if I have a folder, I can input it for you. All right, Jonathan, no problem. So let's look at the parts of the brain. This is the corpus callosum. Remember, it joins the two hemispheres. This is the cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem. So what part, and this is the pituitary gland. We'll learn more about the pituitary gland in the future when we do the endocrine system. So please mention what part of your brain. Well done, I've got some answers. It's the cerebrum. Well done. Memory is in the cerebrum, the big one. What about coordinating all voluntary movements? All voluntary movements. And it's fine if you reuse a letter or a part of the brain. All right, let's see. The answer, yep. Again, it can be the cerebrum, but it's also the cerebellum, mainly the cerebellum. Oh, I gave the answer before I wanted to. Well, secreting hormones. Which one is for secreting hormones? And if you saw that answer, remember I said this is the part that we will look at in maybe the end of next week, the beginning of 2 weeks' time for the endocrine system. So it is the pituitary gland or the hypophyses. We are just going to use the word pituitary gland, much easier to pronounce. So for secreting hormones, your pituitary gland that's right in the middle of your brain is incredibly important. Connecting the two hemispheres. So which one of those is connecting the two hemispheres? And it's got a double barrel name. It's got two things, corpus something. What part is connecting the two brains, the left and the right hemisphere? Yeah, number C. Number C is the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. It connects the right and the left hemisphere of the cerebrum. And the last one, the reflex action. That is a reflex arc. We haven't done that. We'll do that on next week, Monday, the reflex arc. So for 1.4.5, it's a reflex arc. We only had to answer this. And then who of you guys are very into sport? So you like your rugby, not as much soccer, but it might be. Who likes sport? Who likes to participate in sport? All right, so a concussion can cause brain damage. If you get several concussions, it can lead to brain damage. So I see we've got a soccer player here. I quite like soccer. It's not as physical, I think, as rugby, and you need to be very, very fit and very skilled for soccer. So I quite like that you play soccer, Gail. So a link between concussion and brain damage. So they've done a study on people in the NFL, so the American football players. And I know I always joke about them being all padded up and wearing helmets, but the main idea in the football, American football, is to tackle people as much as possible. So they've studied and they've looked at the link between concussion and brain damage. So in 2002, a former American football player was found dead in his truck. A truck is a bakkie or a pickup. The doctor who handled the autopsy discovered that the football player had severe brain damage and that his death was caused by repeated blows to the head or repeated concussions. He called the disorder chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. That encephal means brain, opathy means diseased or it dies quickly. So chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Whew, that's a tongue twister. A more recent study was conducted, which involves the brains of 165 people who played football in high school. Now remember, football is not what we know as soccer. Football is American football in this context, or professional level. The study found that CTE in 131 of the brains. So out of 165 people who played American football, 131 of them already had brain damage. So what is the part of the brain that's affected by is the cerebrum? State 2 possible symptoms of this. Now, all you need to do is, and this will be the last question for the day, just mention 2 of the functions of the cerebrum. 2 functions of the cerebrum. Memory loss? Definitely. People who had repeated concussions have memory loss. I have a teacher who works with me, and his son is only in grade 8, and he has had several concussions already from rugby. And I don't think it's healthy for the brain. So definitely memory loss. What else do you think will be affected? Remember, the cerebrum is responsible for body movement, muscle control. Yeah, I'm getting some. Well done. So we have what happens is loss of balance, loss of motor control, blurred vision, memory loss, slurred speech. So this can all paralysis, definitely. Localized paralysis, so you won't be able to use your arm as well as you could. Now, one way in which the brain is protected naturally, not a helmet. Can somebody just quickly tell me what is one way that your brain is protected, not a helmet, naturally? If you touch the top of your head, you'll feel it. Right, your skull, cerebrospinal fluid, and your meninges. Now I've got the answers here for you for the questions. So for 5.1, loss of higher thought processes, memory loss, paralysis, loss of voluntary action. They might not be able to use a limb or a hand or a foot. Your cranium or your skull, your meninges, you can name them. Pia mater, dua mater, arachnoid process. And the last one, usually it's the cerebrum, not the medulla oblongata. So the medulla oblongata controls the essential life processes, not the cerebrum. However, in an accident, if your medulla oblongata is affected, it will cause your life processes like heart rate and breathing to be affected. And that's it. I can highly suggest you go to brainfacts.org. They've got lots of interesting articles. You learn more about the order, and you can be part of lab discussions where you participate in studies by doing small activities. And that's it for the day. All right. This is just a revision, and we'll look at that tomorrow. Just a revision. Tomorrow we will revise the central nervous system, and we will learn more about the peripheral nervous system. Is there anything else you would like to ask me? Is there any questions you have? You can use the word brainstem. Brainstem. Yes, your medulla oblongata is also protected by your cranial nerve. It's just where your neck and your skull and your spinal cord meet. So it is protected. It is very true, Jonathan, that the medulla is specialized to minimize damage. So it is also protected. The problem, however, is if your medulla or your brainstem is damaged, then your life processes will be severely affected. So people who are organ donors are usually people whose medulla oblongata has been affected and they are no longer able to control life processes. The classes that you've missed, they are on the Twitter page. So I'll quickly zoom back to sorry, I need to learn how to not do this. We'll quickly go back to the main page because that's where all the information is, where you can contact me. But I will also find out if I have access to a folder that I can import all the previous lessons for you. But if you go to the Twitter page, this is where I've uploaded all the previous lessons and links to previous lessons. I've also uploaded really cool videos. Because of copyright, we can't always show videos in lessons, but I have linked it to really good videos as well that you can watch. And you can also check out the YouTube channel Africa Teen Geeks. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mel. She's our lovely host for today, and she's helped me so much already. All right, guys. Any other questions? Not a problem. I love teaching life science. So if you have any questions, please put them in here, even if it's not related to the work. If you have any question about the work we've done this year so far, I'm more than happy to answer questions for you. All right, guys. If you feel that your questions have been answered, you are more than welcome to leave. I'm going to be on here a little bit till the last people have left. Have a lovely day and take care of yourselves. How many marks does this topic have? I just need to go back to the mark section and I'll let you know. If we go to the, I'll let you know tomorrow. Zimisile. I just don't have the documents with me right now. Not a problem. All right. We'll call it a day then. Thank you very much, guys. Goodbye.